Okay, calm down. You got nervous, man. You got nervous, man. Okay, calm down.
Our next segment is going to look at the relationship between Israel and JFK. And to do that, we are bringing on two great guests, as I said, bringing back onto the show Aaron Good, who is a political scientist and historian and the host of the American Exception podcast. And he's also the author of American Exception. Hold on one second. Someone's moving a document that I need to not be moved. So hold on one second. Sorry. Okay. The American Exception podcast and the author of American Exception, Empire and the Deep State. And making his debut on the Katie Halper Show, we are bringing on Ken McCarthy, who's the author of JFK and RFK's Secret Battle Against Zionist Extremism, the documentary evidence, and John F. Kennedy, Anti-Imperialist, His Character and Intentions, revealed in 5 speeches and 1 telegram. So welcome, Aaron and Ken.
Hey.
Hi. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
So wanted to start off with asking you, why is JFK an important subject today?
Can I jump in?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Well, he's, of all the presidents we've had in the last 60 plus years, he remains the most popular. And he was murdered in broad daylight. And somehow we still can't get closure on who did it, which is mind boggling. And he had a relationship with Israel that has been, the details of which have been thoroughly suppressed. I mean, it is the big dark hole in American history. And it's amazing. 60 years, they're willing to admit the CIA was involved. They're willing to admit all kinds of things. They don't want to talk about JFK's attitude towards Israel. So it's a good topic, but it's something I want, if I may just respond to the clip that you just showed earlier. If I could give a historical context, and this will come back around and bring us back to JFK. The Zionists in the 1930s were very happy to be known as fascist Zionists or Zionist fascists. Now, obviously, that's not a popular term anymore. But in the 1930s, it was, hey, didn't have a bad rep. They were proud to be fascists. Now, here's where it gets relevant. They admired Mussolini a lot. And they admired Mussolini in particular because they liked the way he handled the Ethiopians. And Mussolini was one of the first monsters to do aerial bombardment of civilians. And the Zionists thought that was cool. And they actually went to Italy in large numbers. And they were befriended by Mussolini. And he actually admitted 100 of them, give or take, to the Italian Naval Academy to be trained in military operations. So these guys have been fascists and murderers from the beginning. So we're just seeing what we're seeing today. This is what Mussolini would be doing. And there would be
way worse than what Mussolini would be doing.
Yeah, and there'd be elements in the Italian population, not all of them, who would be cheering.
Right.
So that's a little background to our Zionist friends and their roots.
Yeah. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, I would say that he was, as you say, the most popular president by Gallup poll numbers. He had the highest average popularity rating, and then he was assassinated by the regime that we live under, which is pretty obvious because they've stonewalled so long for this. It's just we're all pretending like, oh, it's a mystery. Are we going to know who did it? But in the bigger sense, we know that the regime. Yeah, I mean, the regime did it. What the problem is, we don't really understand the kind of regime that we have, because if it's lawful and democratic and transparent, then that does not go along with, what happened in Dallas in 1963. But looking back at what the Kennedy brothers were facing in that term, there is the criminal aspect of the United States as the global empire, the hegemon of global capitalism. And that is a role that cannot really be played without a whole lot of criminality. And in the CIA, they essentially gave themselves, and presidents, availed them of this when it was expedient. They gave themselves the power to be above the law. And Arthur Schlesinger, under one of the new documents declassified, said is from Arthur Schlesinger, and he was sort of the court historian of JFK's administration. He's a former OSS guy, not somebody that I am particularly fond of, but he's a liberal. He's a Cold War liberal. And he said that the CIA, at the time, he wanted a big reorganization of the CIA after the Bay of Pigs. And he said the CIA is taking on all the characteristics of a state within a state. And what I have found recently, and I'm really building on the work of Peter Dale Scott, because he's the sort of master intellectual of this era, who was a great scholar, historian, social scientist, and poet, and a professor at Berkeley, who really made an astounding number of discoveries. So I don't want to be putting forward some of this baseline information and just pretending that I just discovered all this myself, because that's a common thing in the internet age. But Peter, if you read Deep Politics and the Death of JFK, I read it in 2010 the first time, and I have to admit that a lot of it was over my head. But when he was writing about the crime syndicate, and knowing Peter, because I've become good friends with him, I've done this 40-hour oral history project with him and co-written articles with him, and I'm trying to edit a book of his essays, maybe the last one of political writings of his. So I'm very close to Peter, but I know that when it comes to Israel, he would not say things so explicitly. But if you go back and you read Deep Politics and the Death of JFK, you surmise that the Italian model of the organized crime syndicate, is this like Italian thing, and like it's these Italian mobsters, La Cosa Nostra. This is something that the Federal Bureau of Narcotics and the FBI, they only admitted this kind of grudgingly in the 50s, but it was really much more than this. It was really more run by Lansky out of Vegas, and it also relied on the nationwide network of the Teamsters Union. And Jimmy Hoffa and Meyer Lansky were both Mossad assets, essentially. They both were involved in shipping arms to Israel in 1948. And they, Hoffa visited Israel a number of times. Jimmy Hoffa Jr., he either runs or is a part of the Yitzhak Rabin Foundation today. I mean, this is a history that we have kind of forgotten. We've forgotten who Hoffa was and how RFK went after him. And RFK was unique in going after the syndicate. He went after the Vegas crowd, which was, again, the recipient. They built up Las Vegas in the 40s to be a conduit for drug money out of a connection set up in Mexico by Meyer Lansky, and what you could call the Jewish mob. And this is really the source of what Las Vegas is. And then Teamster loans to build up casinos. And it's this massive money laundering center. There's a really good book by Sally Denton and Roger Morris on this also, called, I think, The Money and the Power. And it's about Vegas. But you fast forward to today, and let me get back to the CIA within a CIA idea, Ken. And I think that you'll appreciate this. You not only had the CIA back then as a state within a state, but you had within the CIA James Angleton and his connection to Mossad, because he handled the Mossad account, which was a CIA within the CIA within the state. I mean, it was like a state within a state within a state. It was and it was tied to the crime syndicate, which was protected not just by James Angleton in counterintelligence, because he did stop an investigation into some money laundering that the Kennedys requested, but also Lansky was protected by J. Edgar Hoover and Harry Anslinger, the head of the Federal Bureau of Narcotics. So essentially you had this network protected by the highest echelons of the national security state that protected the organized crime syndicate, and which was functionally a Mossad asset as well, which had implications in that they controlled the National Racing Wire Service, for example. And this was a kind of network of corruption and political corruption throughout the entire country that was essentially put to the service of Mossad if and when it needed to influence American politics. And so this is quite insane. And we all know about the mob, the Lansky mob CIA plots, people like Rosselli, who ran the wire service for Lansky and Annenberg out in LA at the Santa Anita racetrack. I mean, we know about Robert Mayhew and how these people had these plots with the CIA to try to kill Castro. And this was a big scandal. But if you fast forward to today, when they wanted to go after Assange in 2020, there's this Gray Zone article that says when they went after Assange, who did the CIA do to plan his assassination attempt, which they didn't carry out, thankfully, but also to illegally surveil him. This emerged in Spanish court that the person that the CIA used was Sheldon Adelson and his
Right.
casino company, which is the biggest contributor to the Republican Party, using casino money from Macau. A lot of it. It's the Sands Company, which is an old Lansky outfit from Las Vegas. And this is all these years later. It's this. We have outsourced a lot of things to Israel. Epstein is another example. It seems the CIA outsourced the sexual blackmail aspect of its operations to Epstein, and that would likely be why he was protected. So Israel is a part of this dark criminal state within a state within a state that is a part of our regime that we just don't understand. And it's really staggering to think of the implications of it. And once JFK was assassinated, RFK never again met with his organized crime unit, because I think he knew that the mobsters had won. And this is really the U.S. became pretty much a criminal enterprise, full stop, after that, because nobody could stand up to these people anymore.
So I want to shift gears a little bit. And this is, by the way, if you're watching live, you're in luck, because it's all obviously none of this is paywall when you watch live. Some of this will be Patreon only, but we'll have a full discussion with you guys that's also available. No one should feel deprived. So this, I want to make sure what we're about to say is not Patreon, because I think it's really important. So there's this claim that Trump is anti-deep state. And we've talked about this a little bit, Aaron. I don't think that most people who watch my show think that, but I have to admit, I was a little bit suckered last week. I thought I got a little excited. I thought that Trump was maybe going to do some stuff to piss off Netanyahu. Again, not because he has any morals or cares about Palestinians, but out of, I think I said this earlier to Norman Solomon, right? Out of a sense of kind of like narcissism, wanting to look like he's the boss, wanting to look like he calls the shots. It is always, I do think it's weird that whenever I remember that Bibi gave Trump a golden beeper, because obviously that was supposed to be like a fancy gift, but it also is a kind of weird symbolism since they used beepers to kill people. But I definitely got my hopes up a little bit. Also, because Trump likes to talk anti-intervention. And of course, I never bought into that. I know he's smart enough to talk like he's an anti-interventionist. So I want to show a clip of a recent speech that Trump gave during his trip to the Middle East. Have you guys respond to it, and then we're going to contrast that to what's actually happening in the Middle East.
The transformations have been unbelievably remarkable. Before our eyes, a new generation of leaders is transcending the ancient conflicts of tired divisions of the past and forging a future where the Middle East is defined by commerce, not chaos, where it exports technology, not terrorism, and where people of different nations, religions, and creeds are building cities together, not bombing each other out of existence. We don't want that.
So now we see Mohammed bin Salman, who, of course, has bombed the people of Yemen, clapping. That's sweet.
And it's crucial for the wider world to note this great transformation has not come from Western interventionists or flying people in beautiful planes giving you lectures on how to live and how to govern your own affairs. No, the gleaming marvels of Riyadh and Abu Dhabi were not created by the so-called nation builders, neocons, or liberal nonprofits like those who spent trillions and trillions of dollars failing to develop cabal, Baghdad, so many other cities. Instead, the birth of a modern Middle East has been brought by the people of the region themselves, the people that are right here, the people that have lived here all their lives, developing your own sovereign countries, pursuing your own unique visions and charting your own destinies in your own way. It's really incredible what you've done. In the end, the so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built, and the interventionists were intervening in complex societies that they did not even understand themselves. They told you how to do it, but they had no idea how to do it themselves. Peace, prosperity, and progress ultimately came not from a radical rejection of your heritage, but rather from embracing your national traditions and embracing that same heritage that you love so dearly.
Katie, can I just say, I didn't notice this earlier, but if we go back to where we see Ben Salman for the first time, right there. Is that Elon Musk?
Sure is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Speaking about anti-interventionism, I just wanted to remind the audience of the time that Elon Musk, someone being critical of interventionism against Evo Morales in Bolivia, and Elon Musk replying, "We will coup whoever we want, deal with it." I think that's kind of ironic.
Yeah. He would claim it was ironic too, in a different way. But yes, he definitely is not. Yeah. So again, this is great talk. When he talks about people's heritage and being allowed to continue their heritage, obviously that doesn't count for Palestinians. But I did want to just kind of, and he said that what is it, Gaza? The people in Gaza are starving, and we're going to stop that. We're going to fix that. Now, of course, they're not starving. I mean, that makes it sound like there's some kind of natural disaster, right? They're being starved to death. Just what's happening right now. So the Kamal Adwan Hospital was put out of service from bombardment by quadcopter machine guns, as reported by Dropsite News. There's a trickle of aid coming in, but it'll be barely adequate, and none of it has been distributed to the people of Gaza yet. And according to Gaza government statistics reported by Al Jazeera, at least 326 people have died of malnutrition since March 2nd. UN humanitarian chief Tom Fletcher announced today that if sufficient aid is not allowed into Gaza by Israel during the next 48 hours, 14,000 children could die. Let us take a look at this clip. Brad, can you play the time-coded section of the Smotrich clip?
מה שייכנס בימים הקרובים זה מעט שבמעט. כמה מאפיות שמחלקות פיתות לאנשים במטבחים ציבוריים שנותנות מנה יומית של אוכל מבושל. אזרחים בעזה יקבלו פיתה וצלחת אוכל וזהו. זה בדיוק מה שאנחנו רואים בסרטונים, אנשים עומדים בתור ומחכים שכן, ימזגו להם לצלחת, איזה צלחת מרק. זה לא מגיע לחמאס, וזה מאפשר לאזרחים לאכול ולידידינו בעולם להמשיך ולהעניק לנו מטריית הגנה בינלאומית מול מועצת הביטחון ובית הדין בהאג, ולנו להמשיך להילחם בעזרת השם עד הניצחון. כל הניסיונות לברוח מאחריות ולגלגל את ההחלטה מאחד לשני הם ילדותיים, והם הדבר הכי רחוק שיש ממנהיגות. האם הייתי רוצה להימנע בכלל מהצורך להכניס גרגר לרצועת עזה? גם לא לאזרחים? יכול להיות. אני מבין מאוד את הכעס. אני מבין מאוד את כאבי הבטן שכולנו כאזרחים מרגישים. האמת היא...
The stomach, you're really saying the stomach pains is that a joke? The stomach pains we all feel as citizens while the other people are dying of hunger? Of being starved by you and your government?
Well, he's talking to his constituency, and his constituency includes a whole lot of people that are happy to see Palestinians starve.
Right.
שעד שאחרון החטופים חוזר, גם מים אנחנו לא צריכים לתת לרצועת עזה. אבל במציאות, אם נפעל כך, העולם יכפה עלינו לעצור את המלחמה ברגע אחד ולהפסיד. זה לנצח בקרב ולהפסיד במלחמה. אני מחויב לנצח במלחמה. עובדתית. ותשימו לב לנקודה הזאת. אנחנו כבר 1.5 שנה מכסחים לחמאס את הצורה. אנחנו מפרקים את עזה ומשאירים אותה כאויי חרבות עם הרס מוחלט וחסר תקדים בעולם, והעולם עוד לא עוצר אותנו. יש לחצים, יש מי שתוקפים, הם מנסים לעצור, הם לא מצליחים. אתם יודעים למה הם לא מצליחים? כי אנחנו מנווטים בחוכמה ובאחריות, וכך נמשיך.
So basically what he's saying there is we know that these civilians should be starved to death, but if we do that, then they may undermine our war a little bit. So he's basically just saying, you know, we need to let in some food just so that we are able to not be blocked by the Security Council, and also just so people will continue to arm us. So this is Trump, who said he's going to fix it. They're basically saying out loud how Trump and much of the Western world is interacting with Israel. Now, what's interesting is that some Western nations are actually starting to change, not in any real policy way, but we see some rhetorical shifts. So here is a clip of, sorry, 1 second. Adam Bowler, Trump's special envoy for hostage affairs. And here's what he just had to say at a Jerusalem Post conference in response to the UK, France, and Canada's call to break the starvation siege and end the military campaign. Let's take a listen. That's the Bowler clip, Brad.
So after a few days in Doha, you were the last week with the negotiations team. We're in the midst of a new attempt. How close would you say are we to a new hostage deal?
I'm not going to speak on things that, first of all, some that I was part of, some that I wasn't part of, so I don't want to overspeak. And I think a lot of those things are fluid and confidential. So let me just speak generally in this area, which is I do think we're closer than we ever were. And part of that is because of movement that the IDF and Israel did on the ground. And so that does, it strengthens our hand.
So as opposed to France, the UK, and what was the other country?
Canada.
Canada, who criticized Israel today for the ground operation. The United States supports it.
The United States has always been a fervent supporter of Israel.
That's true.
And I think we always think about how you balance various aspects. But if I were a European country, I'd be particularly sensitive to how I criticize Israel.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I mean, by now, let's just say if you're a European country, you should be particularly sensitive about how you're making Palestinians pay for your crimes against Jews. That's what you should be embarrassed about. If you want to, use the Holocaust as they so clearly are, and so shamelessly are, and they're, really just weaponizing the Holocaust to justify more genocide. It's absolutely disgusting. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on the way that Trump is obviously either he doesn't care that people are starving. That's probable. And at the same time, I mean, whether or not he's doesn't care. I mean, I guess I'm hoping some Trump America Firsters will tell him he looks like a fool because he's saying that we're going to fix the hunger, the starvation, and he's letting the Netanyahu continue to kill and starve people. And one more thing I want to show, and then I'm going to get your response, is I hope some people show this video to Trump because he should be a little disturbed by things that Netanyahu has said about America in the past. Okay, so this is interesting because this is kind of a parallel in some ways to, you're going to hear a concern from a woman that kind of parallels the thinking of Smotrich. So Netanyahu was saying to bring them to the point, Palestinians, of being afraid that everything is collapsing, okay? And someone there with him says, wait a moment, but then the world will say, how come you're conquering again, right? The world won't say a thing. The world we're defending. Aren't you afraid of the world, Bibi? Especially today with America. I know what America, this is a little hard to read, so I'm going to read it out loud. Especially today with America, I know what America is. America is something that can easily be moved to the right direction. They say they're for us, but it's like they won't get in our way. They won't get in our way. On the other hand, if we do something, then they... So let's say they say something. So they said it. 80% of Americans support us. It's absurd. We have that kind of support, and we say, what will we do with the... Look, the administration, the Clinton administration was extremely pro-Palestinian. I wasn't afraid to maneuver there. I was not afraid to clash with Clinton. I was not afraid to clash with the United Nations. I was paying the price anyway. I preferred to receive the value for the price. All right. So I'm the only Jew on stage, so I won't embarrass any of you by making jokes about how, as a Jew, I could really do without Netanyahu talking about price and values. Anyway, so Trump, if you're watching this or any of your supporters are watching this, this guy is moving you. He's maneuvering you. So yeah, Ken and Aaron, what do you have to say to people who are hoping that Trump is going to be an America firster?
Well, it gets to the deep state angle, and this, I guess, would be my wheelhouse since I wrote a whole book on the deep state. And there are roughly two ways of thinking of the deep state. There's the clandestine part of it, the sort of most obscure, sensitive, secretive, lawless, clandestine apparatus within this system, within this regime, within the state. And then there's the bigger sort of there's the bigger structural aspect of it. What I mean is the sense that it's sorry, let me think of a way to say this that's not going to be too academic. It's like the regime itself. The state is all those institutions that have a monopoly on violence in a given territory. But in political science terms, the regime is all of those institutions that determine who has access to the state. So the other sense of deep state is more of in the regime sense of the word. It's kind of a bigger concept that is really all of those institutions that allow for top-down oligarchic rule in a nominal democracy. And in that sense, when you're talking about the deep state, you're not talking about is the deep state going to win or is the deep state going to lose? Are you going to take them on and defeat them or not? It's really about accommodation. And you have all of these entrenched oligarchic forces, and presidents take office, and they cannot go around confronting all the most powerful institutionalized factions of the oligarchy and the regime. If they do, they will just be destroyed. You've got to try to accommodate them. So under JFK, he, of course, accepts the basic cosmology of the Cold War, and always says, of course, capitalism is the best possible system. You know, there's no way you could really talk very seriously about going against the orthodoxies of the U.S. You have to accommodate them and move on the margins. That's more or less the way things work. So in Trump's case, he has confronted parts of the deep state, like those elements in the FBI and CIA that tried to keep him from getting elected. And he has moved the U.S. away from the quest for unipolar, full-spectrum neoconservative dominance. He has, in his speech, he denounced neoconservatism, and he seems to be moving away from that in his other statements and returning to a more kind of crude Monroe Doctrine, Western Hemisphere style of imperialism. So he's not an anti-imperialist, but he is attempting to confront what we could have called the deep state for the last few decades, which is a neoconservative entity bent on a consensus, bent on unipolar global dominance and forever stopping Russia and China and making sure, of course, Israel über alles. But he's not confronting elements of the deep state represented by Miriam Adelson, for example. I mean, he has confronted the deep state in some ways, but in other ways, he is simply he's always been a part of the deep state. He's never advocated for open governance and real democracy that would eliminate the basis for oligarchic, anti-democratic, lawless rule. So he's not taking on the deep state. He is confronting aspects or segments of the deep state And this maybe have been behind the assassination attempts against him, because even saying you're going to back away from the unipolar project is going to upset some powerful actors. But when you've got Marco Rubio, who I'm no fan of, but when you have somebody like him even coming out and saying, hey, the unipolar era is over, that marks a change in the grand strategy, if we can call it that, of the U.S. regime. The problem is that Trump doesn't really have any coherent strategy. And with Israel, it's most obvious that his rhetoric about ending, forever wars and so on, this is incompatible with trying to please people like Miriam Adelson and other Zionists who by now, I think we have to say, have a kind of Nazified ideology, just in the act by the definition of the term. I mean, Lebensraum, Untermenschen, master race. There are precise analogs within Zionist ideology. I'm not saying that they're capital N Nazis, because that doesn't make any sense. They don't like Hitler, but they're lowercase.
Well, there was collaboration.
The lowercase Nazi, as a meaning genocidal, blood and soil fascist, that fits pretty well.
Right. And there was collaboration between Nazis and Zionists, as Tony Greenstein writes about. And certainly Israel depends on and appreciates, I think, anti-Semitism.
I always wonder online, when you see these unhinged anti-Semites, that I always wonder what percentage of them are just Israel sock puppets. But
maybe
that's just me.
A lot of them.
Yeah.
They arrested some guy a couple of years ago who had called in threats to over 1,000 synagogues. He was an Israeli.
Really?
Oh yeah. So search it on YouTube, you'll find it.
Wow.
If I could comment on this, to take this really full circle, I think those people in Israel right now are the natural descendants of the fascist Zionists who admired Mussolini for bombing the Ethiopian villages. And we had a lot of people in this country that thought fascism was great. I mean, Mussolini ended up on the cover of Time magazine. Anybody that ever visits New York, go up Fifth Avenue, get to Rockefeller Center, look on the facing Fifth Avenue. There's a pavilion that the Rockefellers built, and it is a beautiful embossed statuary with the words Italia on it. It's gorgeous. That was built for the Mussolini government by the Rockefellers. So we are the Nazis. The Israelis are the Nazis. The Nazis were the Nazis. And we're just doing what Nazis do.
Right. The only ones who aren't Nazis, well, not the only ones, but the people who aren't Nazis are the Palestinians, who ironically get called that. Oh, look at this. Israeli police arrest suspect in bomb threats made against American Jewish centers. Wow. U.S. officials, wait, can you put that book up? I just want to read. U.S. officials told NBC News that a motive remains unclear on the suspect is himself.
So mysterious.
Yeah, I know. Who knew?
And then his defense was insanity. That was
really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Meshuggah.
Yeah,
that was technically the term. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for joining. Actually, before I let you go, I want to show you and everyone watching that I'll be participating. Speaking of Judaism not being Zionism and Zionism being quite fascistic, and a lot of people have said, at least the Nazis were covering up what they were doing. I will be taking part in a pretty cool Congress. Let me just share my screen here. It is, where are we? The Jewish Anti-Zionist Congress in Vienna.
Wow.
So joining forces with Palestinians and allies in the struggle against Zionism. The world watches in horror the unfolding genocide against the Palestinian people committed by Zionism in partnership with the West. As Jews, it is our duty to take action as this is done in our name. So we must join our Palestinian brothers and sisters in their darkest hour and work for freeing and decolonizing Palestine. To achieve this aim, we must have progressive organizations and individuals across the world with us, working against Zionist apartheid, ethnic cleansing, and genocide as the last devastating evidence of colonialism, which must be terminated. And so here, as you can see, here are some of the people taking part. Stephen Kaposh, who's a character in the documentary that we're working on, which is about Holocaust survivors who are speaking out against the genocide. So Stephen is speaking. Rima Hassan, who's a French-Palestinian jurist and member of the European Parliament. Gadi Karma, who's a Palestinian physician, academic, and writer, and she's also a survivor of the Nakba. And her book, she wrote a book called One State, The Only Democratic Future for Palestine, Israel, which is a book that Stephen Kaposh really likes. Ilan Pape will be there, the great Israeli historian. Lami Sdik, who's great. She's an attorney and human rights advocate, specializing in defending Arab and Muslim community members. Iris Hefetz, people may remember I interviewed Iris. She's great. She's an Israeli Jewish woman who moved to Germany, and she was like arrested for a sign that said, "This Israeli Jew opposes genocide." There's me. Chaim Brashid Zabner. He's another character we're following around, and he is someone that has been on our show. Chaim is the son of survivors, and he was arrested for saying that Israel won't be able to defeat Hamas. He was arrested for that. He wrote a great book called An Army Like No Other, How the IDF Made Israel. Did I mention Tony Greenstein? He's also been on this show, the author of the great book, Zionism During the Holocaust, the Weaponization of Memory in the Service of State and Nation. And Ronnie Barkin, an Israeli dissident, co-founder of Boycott from Within, Anarchists Against the Wall, and Palestine Action member. And he's been arrested, and he also was kicked out of, so he was harassed by the German secret police following his Munich talk at Professor Huberplatz, where he connected the legacy of the White Rose, who opposed Nazism, with direct action and opposition to Zionism. So you can, I'm sure there will be streaming of it. Actually, I'm not sure there will be streaming of it. I don't know. But what I am sure of is that you should attend if you can. If you're in Vienna or anywhere near Vienna, come check it out. It's going to be a historic Congress, and I'm really excited about it. And we'll put the link in the description. Yeah.
That is historic.
Yeah.
It's so important, and it's a good location to have it.
Yeah, I'm really excited. And we're going to be interviewing some of our characters there. So great.
Your coverage over the last couple of years here, really. Now we're going on. However long it's been. Jesus, you've been great overall. So it's I'm impressed that you're doing that. It's a ordeal to travel across the ocean and do something like that. So I tip my hat to you for that.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, it is a lot of work, but it's very important and gratifying. Oh, someone wrote, what about Richard Medhurst? Richard Medhurst is coming on next week. We'll be talking to him next week. Someone said, I would love to see Katie talk to Gadi Francis from Lebanon. So the problem with the time of this show is that it's at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is hard for guests who are based in the Middle East or Europe. And, when I started this show, I wasn't doing as much coverage of the Middle East. Let's see. So what I do is I pre-tape with people there, but it requires more coordination. But we did interview her on Useful Idiots because that show is always pre-taped. Someone says we stay up in Ireland. Yeah, nice. We love Ireland. And I think that's all the announcements that I have to make. I think that's it. Thank you guys all so much. If you're watching this live, the whole thing is free, obviously. And if you're watching this later and you want to see the full chat where Ken and Aaron get into some really fascinating details about Kennedy and Israel, you can do that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. If you haven't already liked this, please give this a like. Oh my God, I almost forgot. Brad, how could you let me almost forget this? Major announcement. We have reached past the threshold of 300,000 subscribers. Wow. So thank you guys so much. We literally couldn't do this without you. Thank you to everyone who works on this show. Yeah, we're at 302,000 subscribers. Thank you so much to everyone who's watching, everyone who's liked this. Oh, I have to read the super chats. If you guys want to go, Aaron and Ken, that's fine. Let's see, because they may have some questions for you. Katie, thanks to your show, I got the propaganda book. Great. So now maybe you guys will get American Exception and Ken's books, and we'll put links to those in the description. Let's remind Smotrich that what comes around goes around. Brian Frederick writes, another great show. Thanks, Brian. Important guest. Thanks, Katie from AR Francis. JM gave a thumbs up. Sparky, love you, Katie. Keep on trucking. Thank you. Teresa, thank you for a great show. By the way, I love seeing your pics with your new fur baby on Instagram. Thank you. People don't realize it today, Sparky writes, but JFK was more anti-communist than Nixon. Nixon had very few friends, possibly due to Asperger's syndrome, and fellow freshman congressman and Navy vet JFK was one of them. Despite being a hardcore anti-communist, and to his eternal credit, JFK made friends with Khrushchev and took solid steps towards peace, as well as halting above-ground nuclear weapons testing. Thank you, Katie, for the live stream and humanity. Thank you so much, Kirk. That's so sweet. And thank you for that donation. Sparky writes, some of the DC monuments feature fascist motifs, such as bundles of sticks in the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah.
That's the old symbol for the Russian. That's on the original the U.S. Senate, because it's modeled after the Roman Senate, and the fasces, which is the symbol for fascism, was also the fascist symbol, but it wasn't. It predates fascism. I'm not saying the U.S. Senate is not essentially fascist. I'm just saying there's a reason why they have that on there.
Right. One other thing I want to say is that I'm going to do a little share. I want to wish, speaking of survivors who are speaking out against the Holocaust, so Lillian Rosengarten, who is an author who fled Nazi Germany as a child, she just turned, oops, wait, I want to shut off that notification. Okay, stop it. Okay, she just turned 90, and we're going to release an interview that we did with her. We pre-taped, but there she is. She just turned 90. She is someone who went on a ship to Gaza. This was 15 years ago. She tried to get in. And of course, they didn't let them in and they arrested them. But I just wanted to give her a shout out. It was her 90th birthday. There was a really nice party that was thrown for her by someone who she knows through activism around this issue. So happy birthday, Lillian. And thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Brad, Andrew, Phantom Miss Fanta, Nate, all the viewers, all of our guests for coming and for getting us to over 300,000 subscribers.
Congratulations, well deserved, and everybody should click the thumbs up button right now.
Yes,
make a comment.
Yes,
too, that helps the algorithm.
And something we didn't even talk about is Ken is like this total internet genius. He'll have to talk about that next time. I got to have you guys back on to talk about RFK Jr. So we've been going over almost 2.5 hours, so we can't do it this time, but we'll have another chat.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Very
guys.
good. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Okay, calm down. You got limits, man. You got limits.